Modifying a car is something that nearly every auto enthusiast enjoys doing. You can make several modifications to your automobile to enhance its performance, refine its handling, or improve its appearance. While there are many beneficial changes that you can apply to your car, there are also many pointless and dangerous ones as well. From destructive suspension upgrades, dangerous wheel modifications, and even faulty brakes. The following 5 car modifications will not only serve to ruin your driving experience, but lower your life expectancy as well. So here are 5 car modifications that you should never get. Stretch tires. A rather bizarre fad from the JDM scene has been stretched tires. As the numbers on the sidewalls of these tires might suggest, the size of the tire doesn't quite match the rims they wrap. A stretched tire refers to a tire that has a smaller width than the wheel it's being mounted on. This results in the sidewall stretching to the edge of the wheel, giving it a very unique show-style look. Although stretched tires may look cool, too much of anything can be bad, and the cons of excessive tire stretching are numerous. For starters, the effects of stretching your tires excessively can result in your tire popping off the wheels while cornering at high speeds. This is very common in Hondas with stretched tires. Second, these stretched tires damage far more easily than their unstretched counterparts. Trimming a tire so it can fit into a larger wheel will make the tire wear out more easily. During stretching, the quality is reduced, particularly when it's done excessively. Furthermore, tire stretching exposes your car's rims far more, which can be dangerous. Lastly, stretched tires also have reduced grip. There's less contact with the road surface, negatively affecting your car's handling. This leads to a higher probability of sidewall failure, particularly when your rims are exposed. Put simply, stretched tires can no longer cope with the usual stretches a regular road tire is designed to handle. And in short, one pothole can result in a blowout, not only destroying your tire, but the rim and potentially your entire car as well. Giant wings. Your car's spoiler or wing is supposed to change airflow above, around, and underneath your vehicle to reduce wind resistance or drag, or to use the air to create more downforce and enable more grip at high speeds. In other words, they're designed to, quote, spoil the airflow to reduce its negative effects. Giant wings or spoilers do the exact opposite. Giant wings are just like aero kits. They don't have any real function other than looks, and they don't improve the car's performance, are expensive, and on top of that, they add weight to your car. If positioned in the wrong way, wings can be counterproductive and cause unnecessary drag, slowing your car down. Moreover, some wings require that you do certain alterations to your car, which means that there'll be no going back. And if you regret your wing choice, you'll have to find another one with the same measurements or change your trunk entirely. Stiff springs. One of the most common aftermarket upgrades in the automotive world is a set of coilovers, yet it's also one of the most misunderstood. While there are certainly very real benefits to lowering your ride or stiffening the suspension, these benefits are not as clear-cut as they may seem. Adding stiffer springs can actually rapidly deteriorate not only your vehicle's comfort, but its handling and grip as well. To understand why, first let's discuss the whole purpose of springs. A suspension has 2 main jobs: to keep the tires in contact with the road, i.e. maintain grip, and provide comfort to passengers. If a bump appears on the road, the spring allows the tire to move upward without the vehicle body moving much to maintain grip. So why would a stiff spring allow for less grip than a soft spring? The simplest way to understand this is to imagine a car with no suspension at all. With no suspension, hitting a bump at speed will result in the vehicle losing contact with the ground. And a vehicle with no suspension is essentially equivalent to a vehicle with stiff springs. The stiffer your springs are, the less your suspension is able to conform to road irregularities, and thus your car's grip to the road worsens. Negative camber. If you're not familiarized with the concept of camber, it refers to the angle of inclination on the wheels of your car. There are 2 types of camber, positive and negative. This car here has negative camber. With that being said, too much negative camber isn't a good idea. It can result in a whole host of issues with your car and tire performance. First of all, negative camber eats away at your tires. The extreme angle creates more contact space with the road, resulting in premature wear and tear of your car tires. This would be particularly applicable when you're taking your car off-road and driving it through rough terrain. Secondly, negative camber harms straight line performance. When you have too much negative camber, your car will not only need to work harder to gain acceleration, but also to apply braking when driving in a straight line. This is due to your extreme negative wheel angle. Additionally, you'll also find it more difficult to drive in a straight line due to the wheel's compromised stability. Furthermore, cars with negative camber have a higher risk of the wheels breaking loose due to the smaller contact area with the road. The angling of the wheel itself makes the impact force of the wheel unevenly distributed. Too much negative negative camber could also potentially lock your steering or brakes. The severe angle of the wheels causes the car's tires to impact its frame, particularly when making sharp turns. This could cause the steering on your car to get locked up, which is dangerous in an emergency. Depending on the design of the car, a tilt as little as 2 degrees can result in this problem, as the car may fail to engage the brake mechanism properly. Adding negative camber to your car also gives you less traction during wet conditions, which can considerably increase your braking distance and impact its overall handling when you need it the most. Lastly, negative camber has a negative impact on your car's thrust and acceleration characteristics. Because of the way your wheels are angled, both sides are pushing against each other. This considerably helps with handling when both are in contact with the road, but the moment one of them loses traction, your car will involuntarily accelerate unpredictably. Gull-wing doors. In the automotive industry, a gull-wing door, also known as the falcon door or an up door, is a car door that tends to the roof rather than the side, as pioneered by the Mercedes 300 SL, first as a race car in 1952, then as a production sports car in 1954. Although gull-wing doors are without a doubt awesome, their fatal flaws far outweigh their aesthetic appeal. Safety is probably the biggest barrier to the spread of gull-wing doors. Federal safety standards mandate that doors be designed in a way that's feasible to open them after a rollover crash, and getting gull-wing doors to comply can be a little rough. Solutions range from the crude to the expensive. DeLorean windows, for instance, are designed to be kicked out in case of an emergency. Meanwhile, the doors on the Mercedes SLS AMG were designed with explosive bolts that could fire the door off its hinges if the car is upside down. But no solution is quite as elegant as just don't have gull-wing doors, or at least falling somewhere in the middle like the Tesla X, which has traditional doors up front and gull-wings in the back. On top of that, there's a challenge of protecting against side collisions, making the door strong enough to stand up to a direct T-boning, as well as a normal door as possible. But gull-wing doors also need to be light and easier to lift. It's a direct conflict that can easily be avoided by a solution that, at this point, you could probably guess. And that's why gull-wing doors and their like were not more widespread. It's just so easier not to have them. While they do offer a few benefits and a whole boatload of cool, they cause more trouble and cost more money than they're ultimately worth. Drilled rotors. There are several types of rotors available for vehicles today. Blanks, drilled, slotted, or drilled and slotted. Rotors, which are sometimes called brake discs, provide a point of contact for your brake pads when you engage the pedal to stop while driving. The pressure from your pedal activates the caliper housing for each set of pads, compressing them into the rotor to create friction. That set of processes reduces the forward momentum of the vehicle, which allows you to come to a complete stop whenever necessary. Drilled rotors do have a purpose. The drilled holes give you better cooling for the heat generated by heavy braking, but it's a case of benefits not outweighing the drawbacks, and unfortunately the drawbacks far outweigh the benefits. For starters, drilled rotors often experience premature wear. That means that your rotors will sometimes wear unevenly when using your brakes, if the same area of the rotor receives contacts. High-performance vehicles see this issue most often, with cracks sometimes developing due to the heat and extreme environment that they encounter. If you use a vehicle for frequent stops at highway speeds, you may encounter this issue too. Secondly, drilled rotors tend to wear in groove cycles, which means you could receive vibration in the steering wheel over time when the rotors age, or hole patterns that are not staggered correctly. This issue causes most vehicle owners to swap out their rotors. Third, drilled rotors have a shorter lifespan, and they also cause some brake pads to experience higher levels of wear and tear as well, depending on the quality of the rotors used. That means that you could be replacing these items as soon as every 25,000 miles, and even more often for frequent city drivers. Drilled rotors sometimes create extra noise when stopping. All brakes create a squealing sound when the pads are worn down, because at that point you have metal on metal contact. The issue with drilled rotors involves the rubbing that you hear because of the slot engagement with the pads as you stop. For the drilled rotors sometimes don't offer a cooling effect for all vehicles. Drilling does help a rotor cool down some for all vehicles, because there's less metal involved from contact points with the pads. That can be beneficial for some vehicles, but does create a neglectable effect in others. The opposite effect impacts the rotors too, because there's less metal involved with the design. The disc sometimes heats up faster than a solid rotor would. That's why you wouldn't want to use this design in high performance settings. Too much heat causes warping or cracking, which requires you to complete an immediate repair. Lastly, drilled rotors can't be resurfaced. Therefore, if something happens to your rotors for some reason, then a full replacement will be necessary. Drilled rotors can't be resurfaced to restore their full functionality as you can with the same solid type disc, although the cost of resurfacing is somewhat minor compared to the cost of a full replacement. Those that prefer a more DIY DIY approach to swapping out the brakes will discover that this disadvantage might cost them a couple $100s, if not more, to complete the necessary work. And those are 5 car modifications that you should never get.